चित्तचोरा यशोदा के माँ, नवनीत चोर गोपाल। चित्तचोरा यशोदा के माँ, नवनीत चोर गोपाल। गोपाल 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 गोपाल।
Hari Om, everyone.
हरि ओम जी।
हरि ओम।
हरि ओम।
हरि ओम जी।
हरि ओम।
हरि ओम।
हरि ओम।
हरि ओम।
हरि ओम।
हरि ओम एवरीवन। हरि ओम।
So yesterday someone messaged me and they were appreciating the Vedanta Academy bhajans. And then I remembered, and then I thought it's been such a long time since we played the Vedanta Academy bhajans at the beginning of class. So I'm grateful. Okay, let's start. प्रातः स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वं सच्चित् सुखं परमं जगतिं तुरीयम् यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीण
क्षीण पापानां शान्तानां
तदागिनां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते बोधोऽन्यसाधनेभ्यो हि साक्षान्मोक्षैकसाधनम् पाकस्य वह्निवज्ञानं विना मोक्षो न सिद्ध्यति. We'll chant from verses 32 to 36 of chapter 4. Verse number 32 to 36. एवं बहुविधा यज्ञाः वितता ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धितान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे. एवं बहुविधा यज्ञाः वितता ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धितान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे. श्रेयान् द्रव्यमदायज्ञात् ज्ञानयज्ञः परन्तप सर्वं कर्माखिलं पार्थ ज्ञाने परिसमाप्यते. श्रेयान् द्रव्यमदायज्ञात् ज्ञानयज्ञः परन्तप सर्वं कर्माखिलं पार्थ ज्ञाने परिसमाप्यते. तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः. तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः. यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डव येन भूतान्यशेषेण द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथो मयि. यज्ञात्वा न पुनर्मोहम् एवं यास्यसि पाण्डव येन भूतान्यशेषेण द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथो मयि. अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजिनं सन्तरिष्यसि अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजिनं सन्तरिष्यसि. Okay, we were talking about the yajna of prana and apana. We were talking about the yajna of pranayam and how, with the energy obtained from pranayam, one dedicates their life to a spirit of yajna. Yajna, the essence of service and sacrifice, the sap of karma yoga, is the fundamental tool with which one evolves spiritually. Spiritual practice without a spirit of yajna is a mockery. Whatever we have learnt in the yajna, that is the fundamental tool with which you bring spirituality into your life. That is worship. Worship is not standing in front of a deity asking for something. Worship is not muttering a prayer without really knowing what you are doing. Right? Of course, certain disciplines, certain prayers, certain chants help, no doubt about it. They are a part of the process. But this is the essence. So, performing all actions in the spirit of yajna keeps you in a state of constant worship. Remember, the motive of the last 7 or 8 verses has been coming from that one verse, that tongue twister which we discussed, to see action in inaction and inaction in action, right? He who sees inaction in action and action in inaction. Remember that verse. To see inaction in action, to see Brahman, to remember God, to recognize the unseen hand, to become one with the witness in the midst of all actions, to see everything from the vantage point as a sakshi. All of these ideas which we have discussed, that is true worship. Staying in a state of wonder, keeping that spirit of wonderment and contemplation. That is worship. And it manifests as a spirit of yajna. It manifests as a spirit of service and sacrifice, as a spirit of giving. It manifests as a charitable disposition. It manifests as selflessness. The more one dissolves one's own egoistic notion of the world and opens up to the mystery of life, the more selfless one becomes. The more automatically, the more light-hearted one becomes, the more easygoing one becomes, the more charitable one becomes. They are satisfied with the remnants of sacrifice. So this beautiful phrase, eaters of the nectar, the remnants of sacrifice. Amritam, you want to have the Amritam? What the Devas and the Asuras were fighting over? If you want to have Amritam, Amritam means bliss. Amritam is not some sugary liquid, okay? Amritam is not some sugary liquid. Although one may think of bliss as, like honey. Amritam means bliss. If you want Amritam, eaters of the nectar, Amritam, you must develop a sattvic spirit of yajna, satisfied with the remnants of sacrifice. After you. Remnants of sacrifice means whatever is left over after your yajna. After you host a dinner party and you give all your favorite foods to all your guests, sometimes there's no food left for you. Unless you're one of those hosts, अरे मेरे लिए ये एक बचा के रखना होगे. Suppose someone has saved one for you. Suppose your help has saved one or two of your favorite dish for you, but one of your guests asks for a second helping. What will you do? No, there isn't any. I'm sorry, finished. What kind of host are you? Don't tell me, don't tell anyone out here. Just tell yourself. Suppose you're hosting a party and your favorite dish, you've asked your help to keep aside three of them, and offered the rest to your guests. And your guest, maybe some guests ask for seconds. Okay, maybe they don't ask for seconds. Maybe some guest hasn't gotten any. They've come late. Everything else is over. They haven't gotten any of your favorite dish. What will you do? After you. And those who know who hosted, I remember back in the day when we used to have, when I used to be a student, we used to have potlucks. Okay, so I used to, if you know me from my college days, you'll pejoratively call me a hippie. Okay, I used to live in a house with six other crazy people who decided that we want to live off campus. And then we used to host potlucks, and we used to call like 30-40 people, And then there used to be other kids who used to also have houses, so they used to, potluck is what, you cook something, everyone else also brings something, so it's a collective feast. But eventually you'll realize if you're hosting the potluck, you have to do bulk of the heavy lifting. You have to cook 3-4 dishes, And as a student, even as a student, we used to end up, okay, if there's a potluck happening, we'll come back home by 2-3 o'clock and start cooking. So invariably, I used to cook some Indian dishes. Don't ask me how it was. I don't remember how I used to cook. I don't cook anymore much. But I used to be very fond of making, of course, the quintessential dal and stuff. But I used to make a lot of dosas, For some reason, I don't know why. And that too, dosas from scratch. Nowadays, you get batter. Okay, we want to have dosas. You call Blinkit, idli batter, 10 minutes in your house. Back in the day, there was no batter, especially in the US. So we used to soak the urad dal and the rice and grind it in the middle of the night. We used to grind it because tomorrow is a potluck. And from 3 o'clock, we are making sambar and we are making chutney and all sorts of things. And then when the potluck is happening, you know how dosa happens, right? You can't serve them stale dosas. So 2 hours in the potluck, you're like, making dosas and making dosas. And it's fun, it's so much joy. And you come up with all sorts of, so, I used to live in Los Angeles. So in Los Angeles, there's now we're all familiar with it. It's called Chipotle, right? Chipotle sauce. Oof, best sauce. And it's a kind of pepper, and you make a sauce out of that. So we used to make Chipotle dosas and other things also used to put. So 2 hours, 3 hours, you're standing, you're sweating, But it's all joy, like 40 people have come and, everyone's having a nice time. You think you'll get some, but your dosas are so good that the batter gets over. What do you do? Now, whenever I think of remnants of sacrifice, I think of that moment. Because it was one of the most joyful things. Right? Even though there's nothing left for you, you're full of joy. So many of you would have experienced it. When you're serving another, even if there's nothing left for yourself, if you're giving something with love, if you're giving something with affection, even if there's nothing left for yourself, you're happy. That's Sattvic Bhav. Now, if you can take that one quality, one attitude, one experience to all your experiences, to all your relationships, then you're spiritually highly qualified. So eaters of the nectar, the remnants of sacrifice, they go to the eternal. They are prepared for the next level. Your proximity to gods and goddesses, your proximity to gurus doesn't determine your spiritual qualification. It's your attitude in your actions that determines your spiritual qualification. You may have been associated with the best of gurus. But until and unless you have the sattvic spirit of after you, Aprevu. When you read the Vedanta treatise by Swamiji, Swami Parthasarathi, he breaks it all down and eventually says, Karma Yoga is just this one thing after you, Aprevu. When you stand at the door and someone is coming from the other side, you hold the door for them and say, after you. Just that spirit. Then you go to the eternal, or you're ready to go to the eternal. You're ready. What does it mean to go to the eternal? It means you're ready for a higher spiritual experience. You're ready for enlightenment, as they say. Right? And he concludes all his treatise on Yajna for the last 1.5 chapters. He concludes by saying, this world is not for the non-sacrificer. Means this world is not for the ayagyasya, one who doesn't do yajna, one who lives a selfish, egoistic life, one who doesn't act in the spirit of service and sacrifice. Even this world, where you and I are here to enjoy the various things and beings and experiences, even in this world, if you want to live a full life, you have to live in a spirit of yajna. If you live in a spirit of yajna, you will excel. Then how the other? How anything beyond this world? How any of the spiritual worlds you're looking to, aspiring to reach and you're praying for? So first and foremost, you focus on this life out here. Don't worry about what will happen after this. In the here and now, in all your experiences and relationships and interactions and circumstances, develop the spirit of yajna. O Kuru Sattama, O Uttama Kuru, O best among the Kurus, O best among human beings. You'll truly be best if you develop this spirit of yajna. This is where we concluded last class. Now, any questions? Yes, Ankit and Prachi, as always. Okay.
So right now we were speaking about the spirit of sacrifice and having this attitude of after you and being okay with if there's nothing left remaining. But in a capitalistic oriented society like today, so much of capitalistic activities, like the profit motive or what is there for me is sort of sacrosanct to any undertaking. Like, if you're starting a business or doing a business, you'll sort of underwrite that, okay, this is the minimum profit threshold with which I'm working for. And only if I meet that, am I going to sort of. So then, how do you sort of align doing any sort of capitalistic activity with having this attitude as well? Or is any such activity just a stepping stone into like moving beyond it?
See, capitalism doesn't mean you have to be greedy. Neither does spirit of service and sacrifice mean you have to be a doormat, right, and not compete. It talks about an overarching attitude with which you approach your activities. So where there is competition, you compete. But when you are competing, first and foremost, to compete, you can't compete alone. You have to have a team to compete with you. Do you have the ego? I'm going to do it alone. I alone am responsible. That's violating the spirit of yajna, right? To be able to compete and to compete effectively, you need a collective contribution of innumerable people. To be a leader among people is to recognize the contribution of others and to recognize the strengths of others. And thereafter, while you are competing and are you are you, first of all, are you taking care of those who are in your team? Or are you being greedy? There's an unfortunate term, the Lala company. Huh? Because the Lala wants to squeeze it all. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that term. But the idea is for a company to prosper, or for an endeavor to prosper, for a undertaking to prosper, you have to have, you have to give everyone the chance to prosper, right? So you're eliminating greed through that. Otherwise, you're trying to aggrandize it all for yourself. Thereafter, in competition, are you, you know, competition doesn't necessarily mean winning at all costs, right? There are certain values with which you have to compete. I'm not saying be feeble and meek. No. There are certain values with which you compete. There are certain things you don't compromise on. Quality, for example, right? So these are all values which you can apply even while being capitalistic. Being developing a spirit of service and sacrifice doesn't mean you have to lay yourself down to be driven over or walked over, right? While we talk about yajna, we also talk about objectivity, to see a situation as it is, right? Friend and enemy is a natural state of the world. There are those who are going to be with you, there are those who are going to be against you. Peace and conflict are always going to be there. Competition is the warp and woof of the world in one sense, But are you embodying sort of a larger value system, right? That's very important. As you go down, you learn by doing as well. So as you learn and do, your horizons also expand. Immediate profit motive, you sort of lose the anxiety for, say, an immediate profit motive, and you focus more on building a team, building a process, building, and you realize that profit is a natural outcome of that, right? In this sense, your ideal becomes your organization, your business, right? Towards which you and the rest of your team are contributing their efforts, and what is resulting is profit, is growth. Now, what do you do with that profit also? You offer that profit back into the company, or you sort of distribute it fairly, right? You give everyone a chance for earning and wealth creation, of course, commensurate to their role and skill and everything else, right? One is not saying that you have to blindly, give everything to everyone else. No. So all of these values align both with the spirit of yajna as well as what one would call a capitalistic spirit in today's day and age, right? So there's no real conflict, one would say, right? In fact, many capitalists will also argue that if you're blindly chasing profit, it's a very short-sighted motive, right? Many capitalists will argue that if you want to have a truly well-oiled capitalist machine, that you need to have a larger sort of panoramic view on how to build an organization, rather than just be short-sighted and focus on one transaction, or one try to sort of squeeze everything out from you get my point? So I don't think that if you take a deeper look at this, there's a real conflict. Of course, further down the journey, as you grow more and more spiritually evolved, you grow more and more disinterested in these silly games of mice and men. These silly games that you and I play, the sage has no time for all of this. He's far beyond the need for any profit. So when that stage comes, you realize that you don't need to necessarily subscribe to, this. But at your and my level, I don't think it's necessarily a conflict. I think, what do they call it? Benevolent capitalism or something like that. I don't know. All these terms that come about, like if you want to truly be
Capitalism,
successful, huh?
social capitalism.
Social capitalism, benevolent capitalism, all these things, all of these are sort of treaties of, okay, capitalists also realizing that, oh, if they're short-sighted, then they burn out quickly or they don't last. If you truly want to build a lasting enterprise, or you want to build a lasting, truly well-oiled capitalist system, you have to embody these values and these, so let's cut to the point. All these values which they're talking about, whether it's management, whether it's this, that, it's all coming from scriptures like this. And what are these scriptures talking about? They're talking about yajna. Right? So if we double click, I don't think there's really a conflict. Unless you see a conflict, then we can debate about it.
I mean, if you look at an organization like Facebook, you could see that, okay, Mark Zuckerberg, he's embodying so many of the traits you're talking about. He's not like trying to keep the entire pie for himself. He has a mission to connect the world, but at the same time, within Facebook or within Meta as such, there are like whole teams dedicated to ensuring, you're spending that extra 15 minutes or as much time as you can on the apps rather than off the apps. So there are a lot of things, and they're wielding monopolistic power. So there are these things, conflicts do exist. It's not really a perfect system.
No, and no one is saying that, just because you build a big capitalist machine, that it's a perfect uh, sort of thing for humanity. You know. But again, without getting into unnecessary criticism, because I don't know their position. Certainly, there are a lot of um, uh, debatable things about any enterprise in this world, right? So I think the more we do things, we'll realize things are not black and white, and then it's all about, after a point, it's about a personal decision of what you want to do with your life and time, right? Because ultimately, all such activity falls into the realm of mundane, right? But that's not for anyone else to tell you or pass a value judgment, right? In fact, one cannot necessarily judge. While on the outside, one may be part of a certain enterprise, internally they may be in a totally different state of being, right? So it's not to say that, oh, just because you're a part of this organization or doing this thing in your work, that it necessarily reflects on, your state of internal evolution. It's hard, it's complex. One cannot conclude such things without being, very close to the individual and knowing the individual very well. So also one ought not necessarily pass value judgments. I would say that there's a beautiful there's a sage, Nisargadatta Maharaj. Okay, he used to sell tobacco. He said, before enlightenment I sold tobacco, after enlightenment I sold tobacco. Looking at him sell tobacco, you'll be like, look, he's spreading tobacco, which is causing cancer, which is harming so many people, right? Of course, he had his own beautiful he had to be an example for to demonstrate that enlightenment doesn't mean you do something different. It's an internal sort of awakening. So also demonstrating that what one may be doing on the outside may not necessarily reflect on one's inner state of evolution. But that said, yes, any institution, any capitalist company, anything is complicated, and there are a lot of conflicting things. Certainly not perfect.
Which is why, I asked, just ultimately a stepping stone to and you answered that, so we don't need to go into it again. you said ultimately for you to yourself. Listen.
And Utsav, just to clarify one more time, like what is the difference between being a doormat and after you? Like, how do you distinguish it after a certain point if you're doing after you your whole life? Like at a party, okay, it's a great way to sort of enjoy yourself. Obviously, you're in the midst of something and it's really nice and fun. But say, you weigh like I do, and then you're gonna do that every day. You're gonna not eat yourself. So that's also not like, how do you take care of yourself while being in the spirit of after you?
No, see, I'll say this in very practical terms. In any relationship, one has to have clear communication and convey one's feelings and one's thoughts in a mature manner. Right? That's the way to manage any relationship. By a spirit of service and sacrifice, I don't mean simply catering to the other person's whims and fancies. We've always said it. If someone else is making a mistake, what could be a mistake? Not respecting your emotions, not respecting your time, right? Disregarding something you're saying, okay? Not respecting your ideas. You call it out. We think service and sacrifice or giving means simply pampering another person or catering to them and not telling them anything. No, people make mistakes. You call it out, right? That's very charitable. It's very charitable to maturely speak to another person and say, hey, this doesn't sit right with me. I think, I'm not judging you, but I think maybe you made a mistake out here. So, when you do that in any relationship, when there is that open communication, you will not be taken for granted. The other person will think twice before taking you for granted. You're not giving the other person the option for taking you for granted. Right? It doesn't mean you don't help them. It doesn't mean you don't serve them. It doesn't mean you don't think about what is best for them. In fact, you're thinking about what is best for them. Through this. So when you maturely approach any relationship, right, these two things are mutually exclusive, is what I'm trying to say. Your attitude of service to another person, whoever they be, and that practice of open communication and maturely approaching any situation is they're mutually exclusive. Right? We mistake service and sacrifice with pampering and catering. Those are two very different things. Learn to distinguish between the two. Okay. In fact, pampering and catering is not service. You're harming the other. You're harming them. You're validating a version of them that is not only going to be detrimental to others around them, but to themselves. Right. So, if that answers your question. Okay. Verse number 32. Chapter 4, verse number 32. एवं बहुविधा यज्ञाः वितता ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धि तान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे. एवं बहुविधा यज्ञाः वितता ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धि तान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे. Evam, thus, tasmat, therefore. Thus means he's concluding. Thus, I'm concluding my flow of thought. Thus, manifold yajnaha, manifold sacrifices. Bahuvidha yajnaha. Thus, manifold sacrifices are spread out before Brahman. Know them to be all born of action, thus knowing you shall be liberated. So, concluding his flow of thought, he's saying manifold sacrifices. He's talked about 12 yajnas. Actually, there are manifold, there are innumerable yajnas. He's only tried to give you an idea that, oh, every action in the spectrum of activity, beginning from perception, inhalation, exhalation, reaction, response, everything in that spectrum of activity is a yajna, is a sacrifice. So manifold, innumerable sacrifices are spread out before Brahman. Vitato Brahmano Mukhe. Know them to be all born of action. Means all actions can be turned into a yajna. They're all born of your activity. How do you perform action is the question. The same action can be performed in a spirit of selfishness and egoism. The same action can be performed in a spirit of yajna. When you perform an action egoistically, you devolve, you remain in mundane entanglement. When you perform an action in the spirit of yajna, you evolve and liberate yourself. Thus, knowing this secret of worship, knowing the secret of worship, how every action can be turned into worship, how you ought to see inaction in action through all actions. Knowing this, you shall be liberated. And liberation is what you are seeking. Liberation is what I am seeking. We are seeking freedom from any shackles. We desist any limitation. And we are lost looking for answers because we seem to be, unbeknownst to us, imprisoned in this body, in this personality. Liberating ourselves from our limitations is what we are seeking through various avenues. We are seeking it through indefinite, unlimited amounts of wealth. What are we seeking through wealth? Seeking freedom. Why? Because wealth should enable us to do anything, be anyone, be anywhere. I asked someone, how much money do you want? They said, I want so much money, I don't want everything, but I want to have the option of getting anything. I was like, that's unlimited wealth, right? What do you mean by anything? Because the world is very good at presenting something more and more expensive. See, the richer you get, the more you realize there's a market and a bigger and bigger market. When I was in Calcutta, we used to have pan for 10 rupees. When I went to Delhi, I realized they give gold plated pan for 500 rupees. There's a market for everything. When you're modest, you buy cars for 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 12 lakhs, 15 lakhs. There are people buying cars for 10 crores, 15 crores. How much money? What is liberation? What is it that you seek? It's a question we must ask ourselves. Is wealth going to get us that liberation? No doubt, wealth liberates us to a great extent. Don't get me wrong, I'm not diminishing the role of money in our lives. It's very important to have money and to have a certain extent of financial freedom, no doubt about it. But what is that freedom? You have to define it for yourself. What is the means you are choosing to live by? Because otherwise, wealth is an endless pit. Are you happy with Shoppers Stop shopping? Or do you want to go to Nicobar? Or you want to go to, I don't know,
Emporium Mall.
Emporio Mall? And if Emporio Mall is not fitting your bill, no. Why? Because you want to be in Mayfair, London. if you have the option of buying Mayfair London every day, all the best. I wish you well. But you have to decide what is the standard you want to set for yourself, and gracefully live in that standard. Tomorrow, if someone leaves you a big, will, uh, great, we can be friends. But you must learn to live within your means. First of all, set your means. Set a certain sort of goal with which you will feel free. Otherwise, it's an endless pit. It's an endless chain. A little more, a little more. The beauty is that you may have very many nice things, no doubt about it, but how simply can you live is the question. How simply can you live? If you can live like a sage, if you can think, you can fast, you can wait. If you can think, you can fast, you can wait, you're a sage. If you can come to the ashram and live peacefully for 3 weeks without complaining about the lack of a fan, without complaining about the simple food, without complaining about, then pat yourself. You're doing really well for yourself. Otherwise, people shudder the thought of going to an ashram. Arey, what will I eat after 3 days? Such simple food. What will we do? So, the point I'm getting at is that liberation is not so much in having more. Liberation is a freedom you experience when you realize you don't need. Liberation is not about the ability to have more. Liberation is the realization that you don't need. When you realize you don't need, just like you're an adult now, you don't need toys. You're liberated. Liberation is not being that ultra wealthy child who can buy any toy in the world. Liberation is being an adult who realizes now they don't need toys. Now you are liberated from the toy world. Knowing thus, you shall be liberated. Performing yajna, performing action in the spirit of service and sacrifice, turning every action into worship, you realize how little you actually need to flourish in life. To be at ease, to be light, to be content. Unnecessarily we complicate our lives. But for those who are not ready to listen to this, they'll think this is a sermon. This is not a sermon. Life is very simple. We complicate it. Truth is very simple. We complicate it. Sometimes how simply we break down some of these Vedantic ideas. People think truth can't be so simple. It must be complicated. There must be something more. I have to read beyond the Bhagavad Gita. I have to read this. I have to read that. Because there must be something else. No, it's very simple. It's just hard to digest how simple it is. Knowing this, knowing the art of yajna, turning every action into yajna, that is the path to liberation. Verse number 33. Shreyan dravyamada yajnat jnana yajnah parantapa sarvam karma khilam partha jnane parisamapyate. Shreyan dravyamada yajnat jnana yajnah parantapa sarvam karma khilam partha jnane parisamapyate. The sacrifice of wisdom, jnana yajna, is superior to the sacrifice of wealth. Dravyamayat yajnat, dravya yajna. The sacrifice of wisdom is superior to the sacrifice of wealth. O Parantapa, O scorcher of enemies, O victorious over enemies. Jnana Yajna is superior to Dravya Yajna. All actions without exception, O Partha, culminate in wisdom. So two things he's saying in this verse. Again, in that he's concluding. First of all, we already touched upon this, but he didn't actually mention it back then. He's mentioning it now. Back in verse number 28, when he talked about Dravya Yajna, Tapo Yajna, Yoga Yajna, Jnana Yajna. Or rather, Dravya Yajna, Tapo Yajna, Yoga Yajna, Jnana Yajna. We gave it a chronology there. We gave it a sort of an ascension there. Actually, out there he didn't mention it. He just mentioned 4 yajnas. Here he's mentioning, the sacrifice of wisdom, Jnana Yajna, Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna, is superior to sacrifice of wealth. There he just said some sacrifice wealth, some sacrifice tap, some sacrifice through yoga, some sacrifice through jnana. He didn't give it a hierarchy there. Here he's giving it a hierarchy. The sacrifice of wisdom, jnana yajna, is superior to sacrifice of wealth. Means in the evolution of your activities, in the evolution of your own being, as you perform yajna, there is a hierarchy you follow. And also gives an idea of what is a greater yajna, what you should focus upon. Beyond just sacrificing wealth, you are called to sacrifice your time and energy to cultivate wisdom. Sacrifice of wisdom is Swa Adhyaya Jnana Yajna. Jnana Yajna comes through Swa Adhyaya. Jnana Yajna, wisdom and the capacity to give wisdom only comes through self-study, Swa Adhyaya. Otherwise it doesn't come. And what is Swadhyaya? Swadhyaya is taking knowledge and information you gain from any external source and making it your own through reflection, contemplation, questioning, assimilation, churning it, living it, experimenting with it. That's Swadhyaya. The time and energy you put into churning, Samudra Manthan, only then the Amritam comes out. So to sacrifice wisdom, to be wise, to give your wisdom to others. A lot of people give half-baked wisdom. Why? Because they haven't done Swadhyaya. There's no shortage of opinions in this world. There's no shortage of, as people pejoratively say, क्यों ज्ञान पेल रहे हो? जो ज्ञानी है वो ज्ञान कभी नहीं पेलेंगे. That's the beauty. जो ज्ञानी है वो कभी ज्ञान पेलेंगे ही नहीं, वो बोलेंगे नहीं, unless you ask for it, unless you're ready for it. But those who are not wise will blurt out half-baked knowledge to those who are not ready to receive and who will not respect what you have to say. They'll say, अरे क्या ज्ञान पेल रही है, टाइम वेस्ट कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे भी. Through Swadhyaya, when you truly have wisdom, you develop that art of conveying your wisdom to others, either verbally or non-verbally. You gain that art of attracting others with your knowledge. So many times people would come to Swamiji, or people come to Shivendraji, or people come to any teacher and they say, ये तो मेरी बात कभी नहीं सुनता था, आपकी कैसे सुन रहा है? आपके साथ 10 दिन रह करके, he's a changed person. Those who have wisdom also have the art of attracting others to knowledge. And that is done through a variety of means. First of all, it is holding back, not unnecessarily giving knowledge. Anyway, so in this hierarchy of yajna, of course, one must give wealth, sacrifice wealth, One must have this charitable disposition of what one calls donation, no doubt about it. As a grihastha, a certain amount of your earnings and your wealth should be donated. You should look around to find avenues where you can contribute to society materially. But beyond material contribution, you must give your time and energies to a cause. You must invest your time and energy in working for something. You must physically connect with the cause. Beyond that, you must make it a point to connect emotionally and intellectually with those around you. It doesn't matter the number of relationships you have, you must have deep relationships. That is yoga yajna, deep relationships. You must learn the capacity to empathize, to listen, to understand where another is coming from, and convey what is good for them, what is best for them from their perspective. And for all of this, you need wisdom, for which you have to do self study, which is the highest, which is the greatest sacrifice. Coming to Vedanta or any other spiritual tradition and investing in yourself, in your own growth, is actually selfless. Self development is selfless. That's the paradox. Self development is selfless. We're not saying self development materially. We're not saying self development just intellectually. Self development means investing in making yourself a bigger and better person. That is the most selfless thing you can do for the world. You become a net giver. Now, we live and learn. It's not that all of this will happen in one day, but we live and learn. So, all actions culminate in wisdom. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, don't think you can jump the gun. Everyone has their process. Everyone is going through a certain state of evolution. You can't become a sage overnight, right? But wherever you are, whatever you are doing, whichever situation life has thrown you in, if you're a teacher, you must teach. If you're a preacher, you must preach. If you're a householder, you must do your householder chores. If you're a businessman, you must do business. All actions culminate in wisdom. He's giving that guarantee. You don't have to leave.
I would like to ask.
One second, Richard.
I would like to ask one question.
One
Like
second.
if we do certain, we
Ruchiraji,
heal somebody.
hello.
Hello.
1 second.
Yeah.
1 second. I'm saying something. Let me complete.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. All actions culminate in wisdom. So you can't become a sage overnight, and nobody is expecting you to leave anything and become the epitome of yajna. No. Where you are, wherever you are, this process, you grow in small steps. It's baby steps you take. So all actions without exceptions culminate in this ultimate liberation, ultimate realization, in wisdom, in clarity. So life calls upon you to make small changes, small shifts in how you approach your activities, how you approach your relationships, how you approach your circumstances, how you approach your situations, right? That is the path to growth. Yes, Ruchiraj, you were saying something.
I wanted to ask, like, if people who do Reiki or pranic or somewhere you heal a person, is that also part of this service, as you said, the uh, the yagna?
No doubt about it, it is. right? Um, it's an attitude of helping others in a certain dimension. Um, but I, as an individual, I'm sort of weary of things I cannot understand, right? So I don't necessarily advocate it, right?
Mhm.
I'm like anything, if you go to a doctor, and they say things which don't make sense. I don't know about you, but I tend to not go to that doctor again. I'm not saying I need to know everything, you know.
No,
So
but that's also a service you're doing with each other. Somebody can help somebody through healing also. That is why I was asking you, is healing a
no,
part of it?
no doubt about it. It is certainly. My only thing is you have to heal yourself first before you heal others. Uh, Otherwise, God knows what you're doing together, right? So, also these are siddhis, okay? These are siddhis, and these should be used in they should not be abused. That's all I'm saying. I'm only saying this not because I have anything against any individual who's doing any of this, because I see in people nowadays the tendency they have a back pain. Oh, let me call my healer to heal my back pain. Uh, they're feeling little irritated or anxious. Let me call my healer to heal my anxiety. I mean, to each their own.
But,
But
but
anyway,
when it helps people, no.
this is not a conversation about healing or pranic healing or whatever. But yeah, short answer to your question, yes. Anything you do with an attitude of helping the other is a sacrifice, no doubt about it. Right? It's an unselfish attitude. Verse number 34. तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः. We'll conclude with this verse. We're already over time, and maybe we'll come back to it in detail next class. But a beautiful verse, one of my favorite. Also, you should, if you can, memorize it. Know that by prostration, by questioning, and by service, the wise who have realized the truth will teach you the knowledge. Know that by prostration, by questioning, and by service, the wise who have realized the truth will teach you the knowledge. In the previous verse, we talked about I mentioned how a truly wise person doesn't blurt out knowledge unnecessarily. They give it to a person who is ready, who is willing, who asks for it, who is an adhikari. Not because they want to keep the knowledge to themselves or they don't want to share it with everyone, because they realize that it need not be given to people who are not able to receive it. It will be an unnecessary burden on them. Half-baked knowledge is a very dangerous thing. So how do you develop that capacity to receive? How do you become an adhikari? As a student, how do you become worthy of receiving knowledge? In this verse, he gives us 3 beautiful qualities of a student, of an ideal student. If you intend to be a student, and we all should be students of life, that's the only thing we need to be. We all need to be students to the teacher that is life. What is the 3 essential attributes you need to have? Pranipatena, Prashnena, Sevaya. 3 beautiful qualities of a student. Pranipatena, Prashnena, Sevaya. Pranipataha means, Pranipataha means a spirit of surrender. Prostration. Now, surrender doesn't mean you lay yourself bare. Huh? What is prostration? What is it? What are you doing when you prostrate? All you are doing when you prostrate is acknowledging that I have something to learn. I have something to know. I don't know. You know something which perhaps I can learn from. I need not agree with it. I need not follow it. No. But it's something I can at least learn and churn. So you're acknowledging. You're acknowledging I don't know. You're acknowledging that you're not the be all and end all, and you already understand. The problem is not the lack of knowledge in this world. The problem is people who think they already know. And if you know, you can't learn. You can't learn something you think you already know, right? If I'm speaking right now, or if anyone is speaking right now, are you listening? What does it mean to listen? Most people, they listen a little bit and then they start agreeing or disagreeing. Or then they start saying, no, but I feel, I think. Hey, it's okay to have opinions. But when you're listening, you must listen. When you're listening, you must listen. First, take in. Resist the urge to develop an opinion immediately. Resist the urge to develop an opinion immediately. Questions serve you more than opinions. I was just at an event the other day where Sadhguru came to Calcutta, and visibly he irked a lot of people. That's Sadhguru. He's rebellious. He rejects the norm. And naturally, there were a lot of people who said, "How do you like it?" It didn't sit well with me. I didn't agree with it. And that's okay. If Sadhguru has irked you, he's done his job. If he's irked you, he's done his job. But as a student, you ought to, what will serve you more is the question, what was he trying to say? Rather than the opinion, I don't agree with him. If you're not able to quite understand what the other person is trying to communicate, at least this is a spirit I try to follow. I try to learn more about them, get a little deeper in what they're trying to say. Sure, after a certain point, after you've gained sufficient information, you may start to analyze and agree or disagree. No one's asking you to blindly follow. But that initial listening is very important, and listening intently, trying to understand. That's the quality of a student. Now, trying to understand doesn't mean you, as I said, doesn't mean you just follow blindly. You must question, pariprashnena. Now, questioning doesn't mean you challenge. Questioning doesn't mean you try to show the other person is wrong through your, tactics. No. Question means that earnest interest to go deeper, to understand, to clarify, to comprehend. So one confusion is prostration means surrendering, agreeing blindly to anything the guru has to say. No, that bowing, that surrender is just to acknowledge I don't know, I want to learn. But learning requires questioning, prashnena. And the third one is the most beautiful, sevaya. by service. You must have forget service, you must have an attitude of gratitude that you have received. Service will come automatically from that. When you acknowledge what you have received from the Guru, when you acknowledge what you have received, you will automatically feel indebted to give back and give forward. That is service. A student always wants to serve. Serve embodies the spirit of helping others, passing it on, passing it forward. Whatever they have been blessed with, they want to give it forward. If you want to keep it to yourself, if you want to aggrandize knowledge, if you think of it as a tool to just benefit yourself, you're not a real student, and it'll catch up with you. Right? In fact, service to the Guru is very important. Anyway, we are overshooting time. I acknowledge that. I can go on with this verse for the next half an hour. So we'll start this verse in the next class. It's beautiful. As I said, it's one of my favorites. I would recommend you memorize it, right? Or if not memorize it, you at least mark it as a very important verse in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 4, verse number 34, the qualities of a student, essential qualities of a student. With that thought, we'll conclude today, and we'll see you again on Thursday. I'm happy to take up any quick questions. I have some time. I was just conscious that
Sir, in the sloka 32, halant is coming after yajna because of being plural.
which halant are you talking about? There's only one.
Evam bahuvida yajnaha.
Oh, verse number
Raj-
32.
32.
Sorry. Correct. Yajnaha. As
So
opposed
because
to
of being plural.
correct. And that is because you see the a after gnya. So it's not yajnaha, it's yajnaha.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any questions? If not, thank you so much. We'll join again on Thursday, and we'll see you 7 a.m. in the morning, right? Same time, same place. Hari Om.
Sir.
Hari Om Ji.